second, I'm going to maximize this, but first, wait a minute. I have to do recording. Okay, it's recording. Okay, so I will start my talk faster, jumping to directly. Thank you very much first for everyone being present in this session. And I would like to jump this first topic, which I briefly discussed in my earlier talk, which is about the shock which humans get when we start talking about creative machines and they taking over our creativity, which is uniquely human feature, etc. I'm not going into detail again about this because the time is dense. Here you see the next Rembrandt. I guess many of you know that piece of artificial intelligence art, which is a painting supposedly drawn by Rembrandt in a way which means that everything in it is in the style and the manner and the proportions and the colors and every materials used by Rembrandt, but actually it's a new generation, a new painting which never really have been painted by Rembrandt. But anyway, the idea about human creativity, imitation, mimicry, to what level it could be automated and formalized and pattern recognized is something which we already touched upon enough. And I think I would like to directly go to the next topic. Here you see a work from Albana Baeva, which was supposed to be a GIF animation, which emphasizes the point because it's a dynamic search of she put deep convulsive generative adversarial networks, DC GANs, to digest few databases which she fed it in order to search and draw its own self-portrait. And for me, this is interesting symbolization of our points. Here is also her work of the same, another image of her work. The idea is that, as we see, it's a, let's say, we are going to discuss how automation is trying to imagine itself by digesting everything which is not only the human culture, but also animals, all living creatures on Earth and the planet itself. So for me, this is the main point in this dynamic self-referencing mirror towards the artificial intelligence networks itself. And why am I saying this? First, I would like to outline what I just touched upon in the earlier session about why we can speak about creativity in creative machines now. How can we think of mechanical devices as being creative? Well, as I mentioned, it's not, these devices which we have now are not really mechanical anymore. And what is the difference? If we think of mechanical device as like in the terms of Descartes, it's fully deterministic, rule-based automaton, which has everything hard programmed into its behavior, starting from the goal, all the rules according to which some kind of automation or machine will behave, and any deviation of the rule, which is par excellence what creativity does, is leads to a break in the machine or a failure. But automation, which we deal now after cybernetics, after the so-called cybernetic systems and computational systems, is of completely different dimension, because rule breaking, or let's say randomness, accidentality, is built into the system in a way through the so-called feedback, which allows the system, at least a little, to some extent, to internalize and put back into itself, into its rules, into its programming, to put back the accident or any kind of deviation from the rules and build on it, including it into the system and making it as a new rule. What exactly does this mean? If we think of human creativity, let's return to this topic. It's not about creating beautiful or funny or whatever objects, really. It's about putting a mirror in front of our own perceptions, in front of our own way of seeing. Let's say the visual arts is putting a mirror in front of the way we see the world. Music is putting mirror in front of the way we listen to sounds and recognize patterns, and asks us to rethink and reimagine the way we see, the way we think, the way we tell stories about ourselves, have built our identities through stories, etc. So this is poetry, or think about self-expression through language. All this is what actually art and creativity in art does. It tries to put this recursivity towards reflexivity, reflexive thinking, and to see ourselves thinking, to see ourselves seeing, and rethink the way we do and perceive the world. So the same thing we can see in the so-called machine learning technologies or AI systems, which is basically that. This kind of feedback recursivity allows the system not really to be determinate, but to self-determine the way it moves towards a task. Instead of hard programming every step according to which the system is reaching from certain output input, let's say a huge number of databases which usually are curated, towards certain goal, which is again defined by a human. Let's say the goal is please recognize certain patterns in this in order to diagnose certain disease, or you have to score high in order to win in chess or in Go. So these kinds of goals are defined by human, but the path from the database to the goal, with the exception of one formula, usually mathematical formula, and few restrictive constraints, is not really advanced, defined in advance, or there margin of indeterminacy according to which the machine, the algorithm on its way, redefines its own approach and readjusts the parameters according to which it's going to connect the nodes in its own networks in order to achieve this goal. What happens again with if we consider this kind of recursivity from the perspective, again, let's see, art, science, and technology. If we want to make a difference between innovation in technology and discovery in science and creativity in art, again, what we see is that in science and art, you have, similar to the artificial intelligence, you have some goal in advance. The goal usually is to be useful. Let's say in science, you have some goal, not always, but let's say most of the time, to create a cure discover a cure for cancer. Or in technology, you need to invent, to create the best, to design the best device possible at the moment for the best communication between humans. While in art, this kind of goal is again freely defined in the process of creating the work. It's not something which is set in advance. It's not about, I want to create this type of beautiful work according to this style. It's something which the system redefines and defines according along the process of creating the work, which is exactly the only moment when we can really truly consider creative algorithms is the moment when they start defining not only the path from the output to the input, from the input to the output, which is also already some level of freedom and indeterminacy and creativity, so to say, but really redefining the goal. And of course, as you can assume, at least this is for me self-understood in a way, we cannot expect that the goal which truly artistic AI art will set upon itself while trying to self-express its own nature through art will be please humans, as the way it is defined now by computer science. What it means computational creativity or creative machine is something, some machine which can independently, autonomously create an output which pleases our aesthetic sense. And for me, it's obvious that if we really truly want to consider creativity in machines, we need to consider the freedom for them to be creative in their own right, in a totally unrelated to human manner, which speaks only to machines and which expresses somehow their own dreams and nature. So that said, I would like to go to the next slide and a dimension which goes even deeper, because both previous points, the point of view of machine creativity from the point of human or from the point of machine, is still a reductive view of creativity itself. Why? Because it still somehow follows this modernist, few centuries understanding since the Renaissance, and especially Kant, understanding of the creativity as something which is exceptionally human and which is exceptionally feature for certain special individuals, geniuses, etc. But really, creativity is more something which is collective, an individual, and something which brings novelty in the world in all possible ways and dimensions of interaction. It's not really something which is possessed by some individuals and it doesn't express itself in some way of product. So in this respect, separating machine creativity and creative machine is something which will be breaking with humans, or human creativity breaking with machines and uniquely human and non-artificial, is an illusion, in my opinion, because seriously, there is so far we don't know in human history, humans have never existed without their own technology. And what makes us human is exactly our constant reinvention and interaction with our technologies. And the same we could assume to some extent, at least, about our technologies. So far, they have not existed in any way against or without us. So that, for me, the main and really interesting question about machine creativity is whether, not in art, what kind of tools of creativity we can use, but whether the computation and artificial intelligence, the highest expression of computation, have brought something radically new already to the world. Because this is, after all, what also creativity is about. It's about future imagination. It's about imagining ourselves and reimagining our world in the future constantly. And thinking about what creativity, what computation brings to the world, I think is mainly about this new vision, new ability to see on a planetary scale. Here we have a work as an example by Trevor Paglen, who explores exactly this understanding of computation as ubiquitous throughout the whole globe, through all these surveillance cameras, all these analytic algorithms which go through different kind of data, sensors, cameras, computer vision, from different approaches, reading different data, which create a certain image of our planet, certain image of anything they touch, which is everywhere. And these analyses are automatic. They usually, there is a lot of communication and exchange between these networks, these artificially driven AI networks, and a lot of the systemic processing and digesting of enormous quantities of data, both on a cosmic level, on a molecular level, chemical level, human level, emotions, gestures, desires, animals, plants, everything is digested through this system on a very planetary scale. And for the first time, this system allows us to see the planet as a whole, as some living, connected, and breathing system in a way which was never possible before. So in this way, we can see ourselves also in a new way, which is more like a nervous system of this planet and not like individualistic understanding of ourselves and the way capitalist vision is channeling our understanding of the future. But my last point is we cannot take for granted that this vision, planetary scale vision, which computation allows us to see, is automatically expanding our perceptions. It gives us enormous opportunity to actually really expand our ability to imagine and reimagine ourselves and see ourselves on a different scale, and diversifies our imagination of the future in radically different ways, using the different cultures from and perspectives from different cultures. But unfortunately, it also has the other tendency of totalizing, which is included somehow in the system, in the computational systems, and we see it everywhere. The fact that internet is owned and databases are owned by a few huge corporations or totalizing regimes, totalitarian regimes, and the fact that our vision of the future is extremely narrow and tunneled through this catastrophic imagination of the climate change catastrophe, ecological catastrophe, and we seem impossible to reimagine and see radically different future of ourselves, because capitalist imagination doesn't allow us to think in any different way. This connects to the question I was asked today, that the overwhelming saturation of images which speak only about this capitalist understanding of what should we generate, this advertisement type of attitude, everything, the data used only in service of some kind of profit, including the culture which we produce often is only in this direction, reflection is in this direction. This is all collective imagination, which is very narrowly tuned, and actually internet and all these artificial intelligence systems allow this to totalize, to synchronize even more narrowly. And the point is how we can reimagine these AI systems so that they help us expand our vision of radical futures and not really kind of falling into the trap of narrow tunneling. I stop here because I guess my time is really over. And if you, I would be really happy to questions. And if you want to connect with me later to ask or discuss, please, this is my email address, and I will be very happy to be contacted. Thank you. So I assume I'm supposed to read the questions by myself, although I would be glad if somebody steps and just asks. So I have one question from Viorica. The general narrative nowadays is that AI will take the jobs that are repetitive and people do not enjoy doing anyway, such that humans can focus on creative tasks that they might enjoy more. Does using AI for arts contradict this narrative? Okay, so yes, this is, there is even one, Marcus du Sautoy, he's a mathematician, and he wrote a book called The Creative Code. And he believes that actually creative AI and creativity in machines, in art, allows exactly this, because even in art, what creative machines show is that even in art you have repetitive tasks, you have some kind of level of imitation, automation, pattern generation, recognition on a more like not really creative level going on. So if these tasks are taken by machines, we will be free to actually reimagine in a more creative way. I basically believe that this is definitely an opportunity which our machines are giving us in a way, which always been the case with technology in my view, but we need to take it. We cannot take it for granted. It's not something which comes automatically and which will happen without our active working for this. And also it involves us thinking of relearning how to see, relearning how to think, relearning our perceptual registries in a new way, expanding them consciously, which means it's a pain. It's not easy. Learning is never something easy. So it's not just having fun and being creative by itself. Being creative is a pain, as every true artist knows that. It's not just generating automatically some beautiful things. Another question is, human brain created AI, so the creator is human and we are superior to machines. Do you believe that one day artificial intelligence will create a human brain, so we'll become superior? So, first of all, as I tried to show, I'm not really supporting this idea of superiority, but the point is not about superiority or not, it's about interrelation and symbiotic co-becoming and co-creation between human brains, human beings, humanness, and technologies. So in my view, it's always a co-creative, co-becoming, which we create our machines, but then our machines help us recreate ourselves or recreate us through expanding our vision. That's the first thing to this, the first answer which I can give. And that in terms, yes, one day artificial intelligence will create a human brain. Yes, it's creating our human brain all the time by just expanding and allowing us to see it differently. But becoming superior, like artificial intelligence becoming superior, this is something which is the transhumanist vision, which is very popular among the computer scientists of Silicon Valley. I'm not really going to comment on that because I really don't know about the idea of super intelligence, and maybe it's possible. But so far, I think there is also a lot of discourse going into this, which is just a pure advertisement on their part. It's kind of, they forget themselves. They don't really think deeply from perspective. They don't really know enough philosophy or human or really art. They really have very narrow vision, in my opinion, about what's possible. So I cannot know. That's something which only the future will show. Maybe actually our artificial systems are the next evolution in the Earth, how the Earth evolves and evolves its own perception. So we're, so to say, the most advanced level of planetary perception at the moment with our technologies. Maybe really next step of these planetary perceptions, which the Earth in a way is believed by some researchers to have generated, will be superior to us, the way we are superior to apes if we believe we are superior to other animals. So what do you think about the triangle art technology, art forgery? Wow, forgery, yeah. Well, obviously, I don't really know. I would say rather that with the way like some works about Bach and this Rembrandt I show demonstrate, it's not exactly forgery per se, because in this respect, humans are really good at. They don't need technologies to forge perfectly already existing work. What artificial intelligence and machine creativity allows, not will allow, but it already allows, is to create a work in the name and in the style of already existing artists from the past, and really making it almost indistinguishable in value from from this. But again, so far there is no proof enough that it is as moving and as deep as the original. For example, there are some examples with Bach music, but yeah, I'm not sure about how far this. But this is something which is doable in a way. It's not forging existing work or existing style is not truly creative. So anything which is not truly creative, machine is already demonstrating that it's really good at, like exploratory creativity or combinatorial creativity. Machines have already demonstrated that they're really good at. To what extent do you think that the question concerning computational creativity in fact hinges on answering the question what creativity truly is? Thank you. Well, that was the whole presentation I did, so I'm not going really to answer this question because really my whole presentation was about that, and it's a very huge question. I cannot really repeat. It's a multi-layered question. It's not only in one direction or another. You can see it from at least three perspectives, which I try to put in my presentation. So yeah, that's a big question. Don't have time to answer it. I'm sorry. If there are situations in which AI algorithms produce 80-90% of the artwork and the human artist only directs, yes, of course, the input for creation. Can you consider AI as a tool or as a creator in this case? Okay, so for me, this is an example. It depends on the artist. Some artists take this kind of AI inputs as tools. Other artists accept them as collaborators. And for me, it's a matter of perspective. I don't think there is one answer to this. For me, but I'm not an artist, for me personally, I'm aiming at seeing the AI tools and generally our technology as collaborative, as generally collaborative in our co-becoming together and co-creative. So for me, this is the better perspective, but it's a matter of choice, I think. It's nothing which is set in stone. Isn't it a paradox that we think of AI in terms of human intelligence? They are definingly arising new forms. Exactly, yeah. Of seeing, knowing, creating, and thinking because of the machine. Exactly, this is my point also of the whole presentation. I think it's a paradox from the very beginning, and exactly what I think is defining computational creativity in terms as it is defined now by computer scientists is contradiction in terms. I agree. Ethics in AI creativity is ambiguous, and in NLP it is crucial. Imagine a model made to summarize and retell long text in a short way. Yeah, this model exists already, GPT-3. It is taught to improvise on text in a way we people do to be creative, but how far it can improvise with the story and how this creativity can be monitored? Well, some kinds of fact-checking will be helpful. What do you think about AI solutions to monitor AI? So here, this is a very interesting and unsolved question, because first of all, we'll just see how this GPT-3 is going to be, and the next generation of language models, they are getting more and more creative in this direction. So I expect that it will be really good in creating some level of stories which will be interesting to humans as well. I don't think there is a limit to that in a way, quite frankly, and I hope it will go into the direction, and I expect mainly that it will be more like co-production and co-creativity with humans and not just one or the other. And whether I think AI solutions to monitor AI, well, to say the truth, I think this is the only way we truly can monitor the scale in which AI work. But again, we shouldn't we shouldn't say AI solution to monitor AI cannot be taken as without any human involved. It's not like one or the other. Again, it's more like collaboration between humans and AI. So we cannot monitor our AI already by ourselves. We need AI to monitor AI. But still, we cannot give everything entirely to the AI and really kind of say, okay, I go back, which is basically going on. It's called automation bias. And this automation bias already exists in the form of the fact that humans are trusting too much to the judgment and the solutions provided by AI to the extent that they give up their own responsibility in the final decision, and a lot of bad things happen in this respect. So I think it's still about negotiating. There are certain aspects, and I forgot the name of the researcher, but there is a great researcher, she's talking about that. There are certain aspects in which human brains are really exceptionally good, and computers and AI are not. And there are certain things in which computational and AI algorithms are really good and exceptionally better than humans. And the point is to work together, I think, in terms of all the questions related. I think there will be no superiority. Sooner or later, AGI will choose to live in harmony, like the story of Kate Wakes. Well, here we will see.